What's up and welcome to Champions of Lore, a show all about the kick-ass stories behind some of Idle Champion's coolest campaigns and characters. Every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNE Games or later on your favorite podcast service, B. Dave Walters and Erin M. Evans talk about all the Idle Champions lore that's fun to know about. If you're here with us live in the chat, you can leave a question that I, Treavor Bettis, will ask them later in the show. But until then, Erin, B. Dave, take it away.
For a second, I forgot how to unmute. That's the kind of morning it is, so this can only get better.
See, I liked B-Day's wave. He was waving to all the audio listeners.
That's it. They can feel it. They can feel it.
In their hearts. They just went,
Mm-hmm.
I'm Erin M. Evans. I'm the author of the Brimstone Angels Saga, a 6-book series set in the Forgotten Realms, featuring two of your favorite Idle Champions, Tieflings, Farida, and Howlar. I play Howlar on Idle Champions Presents, Mondays at 4 p.m. Pacific. And I also play Cecilia on Dungeon Scrawlers on Wednesdays at 6:30.
No, I think that's everything. Like every week.
You're checking my words.
I am. I'm like, no. I feel like. See, that's the difference between me and you. I have no illusions of even attempting to say everying during mine.
What's going on?
It's but it's spread thin. It's spread thin. B. Dave Walters, I say words about things. Hi, hello. And yeah, you can see episode 1 of A Fool's Errand, our second arc of Idle Champions Presents. You can catch the encore right after this at noon. And also, the voting is still open because your votes inside Idle Champions affect Idle Champions Presents. You can vote until 12 o'clock. So open a second tab. Do not close this tab. Open an additional tab. Go into Idle Champions and cast your vote if you haven't already. And yeah, just follow me on the Tweetagrams. And I got a big announcement that's imminent. I told you. Imminent, and when my big announcement is made in the world, I will interrupt whoever's talking and make my big announcement.
Just like 32 minutes into this episode, silence!
I have something to say.
Oh,
no, yes, yep.
I love that.
Awesome.
But hello. Like legit, I told you guys, like I have an announcement that's coming. Literally, when you were like, okay, mute because we're about to go live, I got the we're about to do it email. Literally. Yeah.
We don't say anything important because so you can interrupt.
Nope. Have at it. I like it.
So well, actually, real quick. Speaking of Idle Champions Presents, I made it so I could put this up. I'm a Mike Wazowski myself again here for a moment, but I just had to show everyone again, if you haven't seen it, this comic drawn by Luke McKay of last session. Because my favorite thing about this image, and for podcast listeners, go check out Luke's Twitter account. You'll know which one I'm talking about.
It is self-validating. It's true.
The thing that I love most about this one is that there's literally no added ridiculousness. This is literally everything you all did.
That all happened. And also, I would like to give a +1 to these wonderful human beings. They didn't know I was going to ask them that question.
Oh, really?
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
When I just hit them with that was all off the dome. Everything that they said. Up to and including a legally distinct Jareth, Goblin King. Legally distinct was.
He set the tone. He went first. He set the tone.
Yeah. The bar was high. The bar was high. Also, I very much appreciate Fancy Havalar.
Oh yeah, strawberry dress.
The first time I saw that dress, I was like, that dress belongs on Havalar. So I did realize afterwards that if I was the smart kind of actual play player who also wears costumes, I would have thought about what's in my closet that I could just put on, because I'm not buying a $500 hard to get dress for this. Probably.
Gonna save something for the sequel. Yeah, save it for the sequel.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I just had to bring it up because I had to marvel at that comic a little bit more because it's just so good.
It is actually what happened. Yes.
And good.
I was just gonna say that the illusion with the red pandas on the unicycles. I was kind of like, well, you've halted this entire encounter with spells, so we'll come back to how the dogs react. Everyone else do things. Yeah.
But this isn't exactly how it went, but I was watching chat as this happened, and my favorite thing was essentially someone going, "I really hope Luke McKay is taking notes," and then Luke McKay responded, "I am."
Yep. You can't make those moments happen, but once they're there, you're like, that's gonna live in a cartoon. Okay, great.
I'm actually mad at myself. I have a little pop figure of Jareth that I could have just hidden right there to just be perfect with it. But yeah, so if you haven't watched All Champions Presents yet, there's a little taste of the awesomeness you can see on it. So you should definitely watch them. But we're actually talking today about someone that is in Idle Champions Present and new to the Idle Champions game, which is Alyndra. But that's not her full name, I think.
It is not. I have her full name, and you would think of all the times I've heard her say it, you think I'd be able to pronounce it correctly, and I put the odds at 50-50.
That's kind of the shtick of the show.
But however, as a tribute to my dear friend Jen Kretchmer, I'm going to do my best Alyndra, giving Alyndra's voice.
Yes!
Alyndra Alexandra Gara Herald Sarabrand is known by many names: Lawkeeper of the Rime of Sparrow, Kinscribe of Clan Monkey Mouse, Daughter of Oblivion, Fate Changer, Knight of Wonder and Captivation, and apologetic offspring of Avon and Sophias.
It's like she was here. It's like she was here. Oh my god.
Just close your eyes and feel it. That was not my best, but that's because there's only one Jen Kretchmer.
Heck yes.
And one Alyndra Sarabrand. But yeah.
You've played with her in a couple of adventures now, right?
Oh yeah, we're on our third series. Yeah. Fourth series technically. That it was from Heroes of the Veil to Beyond Heroes to Silver and Steel, and now we're on Heroes of the Plains together. So there's a through line in all of this. That's us, quantum leaping places.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
For hijinks. Yep. And she is most people think that she is just a wizard, but that actually is not true. She is a cleric wizard.
Yeah. Which is a combo I've never actually thought about doing.
I'm playing a cleric wizard in the Gary Con game, except I'm 2 levels of divination and the rest of it grave cleric. She is 2 levels of knowledge cleric and the rest of it divination wizard.
Ooh.
That's right.
Yeah.
She's a cleric of Oghma, who is one of my favorite Forgotten Realms gods.
Who is Oghma?
It's Oghma. Oghma is a god of knowledge and history. He's a kind of a bardic god. He's usually depicted with like his little lute or harp. And I didn't look up stuff about Oghma because I was like, I know enough about Oghma, so I'm gonna get some things wrong possibly here.
Can I just say one quick thing? When you just said bardic god, I went back to a legally distinct Jared, because that is a bardic god is very much Goblin King vibes, by the way.
I'm just imagining
I want
this
that to be an aspect of Oghma now.
No, but I'm just imagining this bard cleric just like on his knees, like praying up towards the sky, and then like this like Mufasa style Jareth comes out of the clouds. You remind me of the babe.
Exactly. just a cod piece to the cloud.
Oh my
goodness. There it is. He hath blessed me.
Oh my god.
And all of his adherents have to wear red and white striped pajamas. Yeah. Sorry, please continue with the thing that we're actually supposed to be here to do. Yes.
Knowledge and invention and inspiration. And he's kind of cool because I think sometimes we do knowledge and it's like the stuff that's all written down. And this is beyond that. It's of learning things and not just like what do we already know and how do we treat that. Although in the Forgotten Realms, there's a lot. This is one of those places where like I find it delightfully realistic, I guess. There's a schism. There's an Oghmite schism.
Oghmite schism.
That sounds like a badass metal band.
Doesn't it though? Or like the next 9 Inch Nails album, at least. Yeah, they're like Tool had schism. We're gonna have the Oghmite schism. Sorry, please.
Much like historical church schisms, it's not metal. It's bureaucratic and fussy.
wait, hang on a second. The god of nerds has a bureaucrat schism.
Basically, yeah. There's so during the Time of Troubles, which is an event that happened, I think that was sort of between second and third edition was where it kind of lands, where basically gods all got corporeal and nobody knew what happened. And there's a lot of bonkers adventures that happen. The Avatar series takes place here. And the Grand Patriarch of Oghma disappeared. And nobody knew what happened. And so on the one hand, the Orthodox Church of Oghma believed that he ascended to Oghma's realm, the House of Knowledge. And so then he is forevermore the only true Grand Patriarch of the church until Oghma says, nope, you now. The Church of Oghma and Sembia said, no, that's ridiculous. This is the new Grand Patriarch. So I adore how kind of realistically fussy this is. It isn't about necessarily, I mean, aside from the fact that someone magically disappeared.
But to say that is literally the division between Judaism and Christianity. Like literally, we've had some altercations about this.
Altercations.
The other part of it that comes into it is that the Church in Exile, which is the one that that named a new Grand Patriarch, there is some belief of well, should we test the knowledge? Is all knowledge valuable, or is some knowledge not actually useful or good for people to have? Whereas the other side is no, all knowledge all the time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what I know about Oghma. I have a fallen paladin of Oghma in my books.
I can. That's interesting. It's like just I seen too much. Just 1,000-yard stare haunted.
Not to spoil it, because the thing is that he was a paladin, and then all of a sudden his power stopped, and he's like, "What happened?" And so this is this huge thing. How did he mess up? And so when he does finally figure it out, the deal was he liked being right. He liked being right more than he liked learning stuff and figuring stuff out and listening. And so that's where Oghma's like, "No, buddy, you're doing this wrong, and this is making you a worse person. So yoink." Your powers are gone, which is what I like about Oghma, because it is about, kind of gaining more knowledge and using that knowledge to create new things. And it isn't about being the smartest one in the room, even though I'm sure smartest ones in the room are very attracted to the Church of Oghma because they're valued there. Mm-hmm. But that would be sort of the dark side of Oghma's dogma, which is a very silly phrase that came out of my mouth.
Oghma, yeah.
So yeah, that was what I did with that, because I thought that was interesting.
I would say two things, if I can keep my own tangents correct in my brain, is one, I love the idea of a knowledge paladin that is just like knowledge smite, which Alyndra, if you see her sword, her mace, it does have a book on the end.
Yeah.
So she does do a knowledge smite. The other thing is you have this schism of what's the will of Oghma? It's which one of your clerics can cast spells? Oghma's listening to them. You think this would be pretty easy to nail down,
What if he's kind of giving it to all of them because he's figure it out. This will be interesting.
It's true.
Continue to make your arguments.
That's again, can you imagine? It's just got to be a Kirk versus Picard subreddit.
Oh my god. Well, see, you were back there, you said the god of nerds. I'm just what is their channel divinity? Well, actually,
it literally, because it's this huge skill check bonus. They literally channel well actually. That is true. Yeah.
I love that.
I feel like that's the dark side, though.
Yeah, that is true.
Actually pass.
Our announcement has gone out. Our announcement has gone out.
Time has arrived.
I can tell you guys what the Black Dice Society is. Finally.
Put this knowledge in your brain for Oghma.
Here it is. Speaking of important knowledge, we are doing an official Ravenloft stream for Dungeons and Dragons. So
that's super cool.
Yes, so starting Thursday, April 1st, we will be doing a legit dark horror D&D stream. Thursday, April 1st, 4 p.m. Pacific. It is not a joke. I realize it's on April Fool's. This is very real. Yeah.
My body is ready.
it should be a whole thing. That's all.
You're the DM, right?
Yes, I'm the DM. And there's
I'm terrified. I'm not even one of the players.
Rightly so, because I'm going to put them through a little bit of a meat grinder. We got Mark Meir, DJ Knight, Becca Scott, Tanya DePash, Nora Ibrahim, and Sage Ryan, and some special guests and some surprises. So come along with us on that one for some awfulness that I'm very excited about.
And if you're listening to this in the far-flung future, I'm sure it's available somewhere that you can watch.
That is true. Now, if you're listening to it like a week from now, like I watch it whenever. Yeah.
That's awesome. I cannot wait for that. So going back a little bit to Alyndra, one of the things that we're talking about is that she is an elf. But there was that kind of like crossboard of like, okay, well, you're half elf, half elf.
Yeah, she's the child of Avrin and Sophias, and Avrin is a half elf. I think Sophias is a full elf though. So then it's like, does that make you like a quarter human? But then she was raised by gnomes because Avrin and Sophias are terrible parents. Yeah.
So she's culturally gnomish.
Oh, halfling. Okay. She's raised by Ghostwise halflings.
Oh,
sorry, Ghostwise
halfling.
Halflings.
Ghostwise.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Then she is culturally halfling, and she speaks halfling sign language, which is funny because Freely doesn't.
Oh.
So that came up multiple times that she tried to be like, and I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me. I'm like, what? Are we attacking this guy? I don't know. Yeah, right. Because he's a Lightfoot halfling. So, yep.
I love that though. Also, I did want to call it really quickly that I do love that. I'm looking at the Idle Champions like actual page for her. That her affiliation is Heroes of the Plains. I love that that's in there now.
I mean, rightly so. Like we just had first episode of Heroes of the Plains last week, which is funny because that was when Alyndra and Briv debuted on Idle Champions Presents.
Yep.
And then the next night we're on Heroes of the Plains. So that's
wibbly wobbly.
That's how I know you're a professional. You have these two shows back to back, same character, different parties, different time points, and you keep them straight. That's impressive.
That's the advantage also of having an impulsive character with int as a dump stat. I don't need to keep track of his actions or intentions. He just does things. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, but before I wanted to pivot over to elves, but real quick before we do that, is there anything more with Oghma that we want to talk about, or anything of the knowledge clerics? No?
Well, it's interesting that I think in this game in particular, this game being D&D, oftentimes it is easy to get hung up on the fireballs and the disintegrates, and all of that stuff is fun. But in this world in particular, there is so much to know. And you can have really interesting characters and concepts, like that concept of a fallen paladin whose god turns their back on them because they just like to be right all the time, which is genius, by the way.
Thank you.
Absolute genius.
I love him.
Yeah. And knowledge smite. You have to yell well actually when you do it. I think or at least you're like incorrect.
Cite your sources.
It's true.
Cite your sources.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, now I've heard in my head, search your sources, you know it to be true.
Exactly. Wikipedia doesn't count.
Citations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a couple other gods that sort of connect to Oghma because Forgotten Realms is has a pantheon of like everything. So you have Oghma, you have Denir, who is sort of more about writing things down, so cartography and art and literature and scholarship. And then you have I think it's Milil, who is more like specifically bards and song and things like that, that sort of come under, usually they're set under Oghma in the House of Knowledge. If you have a character and you want to do this, but you want to like narrow it down into a slightly more specialized, Denir is a great option, or Milil. Denir is, I think, a big aspect of the cleric Quintet, which is Bob Salvatore's other series that isn't Dritz, although I think they cross back over. So,
I mean, how can you can never go far without Dritz.
If you do, people get mad. They're like, go back to it.
It's true. The face that launched 1,000 drow. Yep.
After I know this is a different game, but like after the Dark Alliance trailer last week, I finally was like, all right, I'm finally diving into the Driss books. I put it off too long. I'm doing it. And then over the week, I started reading those. And then over the weekend, I started up a new Kingdoms of Amalur one. And I was like, I don't want to think of a name and stuff for. You know what? R.A. Salvatore helped write this game. It's Driss. I'm just gonna make Driss.
Easy.
Yep. So what do we know about elves? I mean, that's kind of a wide thing.
It's a huge
thing. Yeah, because
there's a lot of elves in Forgotten Realms and a lot of variants of elves, and I'm not an expert on elves, but I still feel like I could fill this hour talking about elves.
Yeah. I think
the number of elves.
One of the questions that I think I've always had about elves that I haven't found an answer to is like, how like old are they in the Forgotten Realms? Like, were they there first? Were they there at the same time as everything, or like when did they come about?
I believe they're considered one of the progenitor races, but let me check.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's the Aaron
also
searching
while you were searching, it's one of those things that, you know, again, I don't think it's really a secret that, you know, early D&D inherited a lot of Tolkien, of Tolkien inherited from Finnish mythology, and so there is definitely a wibbly wobbliness in the early mythology of like how things work. And again, as I've alluded to in the past, why it's possible to be a half elf and a half orc, but no half other things and things like that. Because again, orcs were kind of an infection originally. It's being an orc was something that happened to you. And you know, the elves were like kind of the timeless shining ones, that they do live like hundreds and thousands of years, at least they used to. I don't know. And yes, are you done loading up?
This is just that they arrived in the worlds of Abir Toril over 100 millennia ago, which is one of those fantasy bonkers timelines that I love and also want to argue with, but I don't. And that they were already there when the first Draconic empires were being established. So they've been there for a long, long, long time at the very least. They may have been born from the battle between Grumst and Corellon, or they may have bopped out of the Feywild, or they may be echoes of something in the Feywild. That's the part nobody knows, and they have to make up.
That was actually kind of like where I was going to pivot. That is that like we have the Feywild, where we know Eladrin are in, but that's also like recent stuff because the Eladrin weren't in every edition. Yeah. I think they came around in fourth edition.
They were in third.
They were in third.
Yeah. Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that what they are in third, I think, is more what they are now, which is sort of like Ultra Elves.
Ultra Elves. Yeah. I always did like I always did like Will Wheaton's in character explanation of Eladrin and elves. His Eladrin is like the elves are like our hillbilly cousins. I always got a kick out of that.
They are the pinky up.
Yes,
of elves. Yes, that is all true.
And actually, in Forgotten Realms, so you have the High Elf / Eladrin type, right? And then those are further subdivided into Sun Elves and Moon Elves. There are Star Elves, and I'm forgetting.
There's Sea Elves, right?
Sea Elves are a different thing, but there are Sea Elves. Right. Those are actually like so the High Elves get split into the Sun Elves, the Moon Elves. There are Star Elves. And they also have secondary names. So Sun Elves are Gold Elves, Star Elves are Mithril Elves. I think Moon Elves are Silver Elves, but I actually don't. I think that one, the texts tend to favor Moon Elf because it sounds pretty cool. And I'm forgetting some others. And then you have the Sylvan Elves, which are the Wood Elves and the Wild Elves. And then you have the sort of bonkers elves is not the technical term, but it kind of is, which is the Sea Elves. So those are aquatic elves. And the Avarials, who are the winged elves.
The what? What?
Flying elves.
What?
We actually have in Dungeon Scrawlers, our Blade Singer is an Avarial. She is, however, on maternity. Her player, Emily Tang, is on maternity leave, so she hasn't been playing.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Maybe won't sleep. Yeah, they're very rare. They tend to be, I think they're from settlement well up in the north, or they're from Evermeet, the Elf Island. But yeah, so they can fly.
I legit just had like a Lord of the Rings moment where you're just around like, what's that? And you're like, it's an elf with wings. I'm like, they come in wings? I'm getting one.
I don't have wings. Of course not. You're a boy. Just go full Gelfling.
Oh my God. Okay. Because this show is known for tangents, I have to tell the story because you brought this up. My wife and her sister are obsessed with Dark Crystal. That was their jam as a kid. And they went to Comic-Con one time, and there was this dude selling statues and stuff, and they had one that had a boy Gelfling with wings, and they're like 9 years old, went, that's wrong.
How dare you?
That's not right.
So again, in the aforementioned Jareth that we were talking about before, so there was an event, at least here in the before times, where it's called the Labyrinth of Jareth, which is like a masquerade ball that happens every year. And one of the things that happens is there's a group of people that have full-scale film authentic Skeksis costumes.
Oh my God.
And they walk around, and I want you to know it is terrifying.
Oh, that sounds haunting.
Yeah. Like I fear no man, but I turn around and the four of them walk into the room, and I'm like, wait, hang on. Wait a second.
You should square it up. Get your bird face away from me.
You back off. I swear to God, if you look at me and say, please, I'm going to jail for assault. Stop it. Yeah.
I also have a Dark Crystal tangent that actually ties both of these together. I dated a boy in college, and we were talking about watching this movie a little on the young side, and I was like, oh yeah, those Skeksis scared the crap out of me, especially when they like pull apart the Chamberlain. I really thought they were like pulling his body.
Yeah.
So freaked out. And he's like, so we're both in agreement this is terrifying. I tell the part it's terrifying to me, and he's like, oh, the part I freaked out is when she jumped and she popped wings out of her back, and I was just like, what the? Like, that was the thing that really scared him. All of a sudden, she had wings.
The flying girl, that was the deal breaker?
Yeah, apparently.
Right.
Also,
this is good information.
I gotta call this one out in chat because Dark Cyril even spent points to highlight it. But I just love that in the chat just went, And it's just a bunch of M's and a question mark. I'm like, I know what sound you're making.
Exactly.
There it is. That was perfect. That was even better.
You're good at that. So there's two other big types. I skipped Drow, who are kind of their own subset.
How dare you?
I feel like they don't fit under. They're separated from the High Elves and the sort of Sylvan Elves, but I feel like they're too much of their own thing to lump them under Bonkers Elves.
Mm-hmm.
And the other Bonkers Elves are the Lithari, who are werewolf elves.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's metal as hell.
Is actually half Lithari. So over the course of the show, she eventually figured out she could turn into a wolf.
Oh, I was okay. See, once again, I just dove in at season 2, so I was a little confused when Rana was just like, "Am I going like wolfy?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Are you a werewolf?"
I should explain that one. Yeah, the Lithari are elves, which are lycanthropes.
That's badass.
But they're like good lycanthropes. Generally, or at least they're sort of sentient, like we can decide how we feel kind of things.
Yeah.
So, I did have a conversation with someone recently where they were just like, I don't think the High Elves are pretentious. I'm like, they call themselves the High Elves.
Literally.
The elves call themselves Tel Kasir, which means the people, which is like pretty, like that's a very common linguistic thing. You call yourself the people, and then they call everybody else Intel, which means not the people.
I mean,
not people, kind of, but
which is an incredible thing. So, side note again so this is not just a tangent. It is, but it's still relevant though, because this is how these stories like weave in and out of real life. The reason why we have the word barbarians is in Rome. The language that they spoke in Germania sounded to them like they were going bar 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 bar. Literally, they were like they just go bar 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 bar, and it's barbarians. That's literally where the word comes from. Is what old Germanic sounded like to Romans. Could you imagine if we just named a group of people now? There's like, who are those people? It's like, oh, they're the blah, 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 people.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and like it's like Oh no, because now we're like, that's a badass name, and like back then it was just like we didn't know what to call them.
The blah blahs.
Yeah,
literally the blah blah blahs. Yeah. Like we don't know what they're saying.
Yeah,
and it wasn't even like Forest Murder Man. You know, it literally was like
Forest Murder. Yeah, because nowadays. Wait, are you trying to tell me that like thousands of years from now, someone's going to be playing, you know, whatever a tabletop RPG is then, and they're like, all right, I am going to be a halfling Florida man.
True. No, because that'll be an aquatic elf by then. Yeah. Yeah, that's but you're again, that's like the pretension of the elves. Again, those of you that are familiar with me and my work is one, like I've helped like consult on some of the changes to the portrayals of like races and lineages and all of that stuff, and kind of like evolving past the old medium, because it is inherently problematic whenever you've got any correlation between race and morality. Anytime you're like, this is a good race and this is a bad race, it's like, but is it though? Because the problem is almost all of the bad races tend to be dark skinned.
Yeah.
Pretty much across the board, up to and including the drow. And again, a lot of that was inherited from the Finnish mythology, where the elves were fair and, you know, the orcs were terrible and all that. So, I get it contextually, but that's why it's important to show in like The Hobbit did a good job of this recently, of just kind of showing like with like Lee Pace's character, Legolas's father, whose name is me.
Is it Thranduil?
Thranduil.
Thranduil.
Right.
Yeah. Was a jerk.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But to be fair, did give us a very majestic gif of bitch, I'm leaving.
Every time he was on screen, it was like, you know, like GIF magic, you know. But it's that's the thing. Again, when it's rough when you believe you're superior and you arguably are. That's what I like about the Eladrin, you know, where they're which again, tangent to my tangent in record of Lodos War.
Grand tangent, if
my
you will.
my grand tangent. No, it's we still got a half hour left. The tangents will get grander.
I meant it like lineage. It's your grand tangent and then your great grand tangent.
That is true.
See, but I'm worried more of an Inception thing, where if we go too many tangents in, we're just gonna get stuck forever.
No. Too many tangents in, we just have a new topic.
That is true.
It's a new world.
It's next week's show. I mean, comparing how many times we've brought up Orcus with his boombox, up to and including now.
Don't you?
Arguably, this has been one tangent to the original tangent like 20 weeks ago. But the Dark Elves in Record of Lodos War, they get into a fight with one of the humans, and he's saying, "Are you saying elves are superior to humans?" And the elf just looks at him and it's like, "Are you saying we're not?" like advantage Eladrin. You're kind of better at us at literally everything.
Yeah. Well, one of them I wanted to bring up that I just kind of popped in there was are Shatterkai considered elves?
No, Shatterkai.
Because I've heard people like refer to them as like the gray elves. And stuff like that. Because like the fandom page says Shatterkai, also known as Shadow Fae, and I'm like, okay, but like, does that mean they're elves?
That's interesting, because I had thought
in the
Shatterkai,
because they're created by the Raven Queen.
Yeah.
Well, again, back to Orcus. But it's they were believed to have originated as an offshoot of elves associated with the Raven Queen. But I don't think they're like proper.
I would say they're Fae, not elves.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, in the sense that like chimpanzees and humans are similar, but like we're not though. You know, personally.
Yeah.
So this was the thing where I think that I was confused, is that there's sort of two origin points for Shatterkai, and one of them is elves, the Feywild, that the Raven Queen changed, and one is Netherese, who were trapped in the Shadowfell. So those have a human origin.
Okay.
So I think the way you bind those together is Well, actually, no. This just says there's two kinds of shadow. I don't.
You
know what? The
messy.
shadow's the important part. It's all mixed together now. They're human. They have human elf shadow ancestry.
See, really, I think Shadowkai mainly from a meta standpoint came as the drow aren't goth enough.
Honestly, that really is it. You know, that they were like, we need, and that was all Dritz's fault, by the way. Like, we needed like more emo drow because we had this like one like cheerful boy.
We had this one cheerful boy.
Messed it up for everybody. It's,
I love that.
Yeah, this is although they are pretty metal and again, well, it's funny that to have been created by the Raven Queen. One thing I think a lot of people don't realize is Ravenloft is in the Shadowfell.
Yes,
it's part of the Shadowfell.
I used that plotline in my Curse of Strahd game, where they actually went to the Raven Queen's domain because they couldn't go up and out of the Shadowfell, but they could go deeper.
And there's a debate that the god Ezra might actually just be an aspect of the Raven Queen. Every once in a while, she checks in and is like, "What are you guys doing in here?" Still sucks.
So going a few tangents up. So there are all these types of elves and everything like that, but they don't often get. Like, we don't see a lot of them throughout the Sword Coast, at least, from what I've seen. So, like, what areas do these other type of elves normally hang out in? Is that, like, known?
So, I mean, there are... like, any place you have a large metropolitan settlement, there's probably elves mixed in there. There's elves that live there.
Oh, yeah, no. Well,
there, right?
I'm not saying...
But then as far as, like, elven kingdoms, you're right. I just wanted to give that little point. Like, if you're like, oh, no, my elf can't be in Waterdeep.
No.
Anybody can be in Waterdeep.
100%.
True. That's what Skullport's for.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, so, I mostly mean like the sea elves and the elves with wings and stuff like that.
Sea elves. It's funny that sea elves they range as far as Mount Celestia, which was one of the things I was going to bring up last week as part of Freely's story. Because when the camera found him and Heroes of the Plains, he was at the gates of Mount Celestia. And I knew he'd gotten there because he sailed there with sea elves, because they apparently trade back and forth to Mount Celestia. I didn't get a chance to say it out loud.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, neat.
But that was how he done it. Yeah.
I like that.
So the one that I'm familiar with are on the Sea of Fallen Stars, which is the inland sea of Faerun. This says they also are in the Great Sea, which is the sea that lies between the continents of Faerun and Zakara, which, I'm not going to lie to you, I have a really hard time picturing the whole like globe of Toril. I think that's to the southeast.
Well, then there's the Sunless Sea that goes all the way to Dark Sun. So, it's,
oh god,
don't even try.
Don't even
try.
And I'm clearing this up for chat and listeners now. That is not Dark Sun confirmed. Just because the words were said does not know. Now, Spelljammers.
Oh, sorry. It's, south and west is the Great Sea, where you get the other subset of aquatic elves.
You mentioned the whole world of Toril. Every time I bring up that massive map, my eyes just go cross. I'm like, what am I can't.
It's a lot to track.
It is a lot of track. God dang it, Garwar, stop it in the chat. Garwar just in all caps, Dark Sun confirmed. So what are some other things about elves that just stands out to you as like this is an important piece of lore for people to know about?
Something that always bothered me back to second edition. You know what really grinds my gears is kids today will never know the struggle of multi-class and dual classing. In the original D&D and second edition, there was only certain races that could play certain classes, and only certain classes could be multi-classed. So if you ever hear like an elven fighter mage thief, for instance, they were the only race that could do that, be a fighter and a mage and a thief. And the way it worked was you had to divide your XP equally between all the classes, and they leveled at different rates. So it was just like a just hellish grind that you should never have done. But guess who did it constantly? Me. Humans were not capable of multi-classing because the idea was you didn't live long enough. So they had to do something called dual classing, where you had to level up in a certain class. Like you got 5 levels of fighter, for instance, and then you're like, I'm stopping being a fighter and I'm a rogue now. And then you had to go back to level 1 as rogue and level up again. And it was only when you got to level 6 of rogue could you re-access your old fighter powers. But that never made sense to me.
No! I'm so mad right now.
Well, because I'm like, wouldn't the people that live functionally indefinitely be the ones that are like, I'm in a cleric phase right now, you know? And the humans that got like 10 good years are like, no, like buckling on armor and reading a scroll. You're like, I don't just, you know,
burn the candle at every available end.
Exactly. Like I'm gonna blow out my ACL in a dungeon and hang them up. So, the logic of that never made sense to me ever. Yeah. So
I've seen old things where it's just like, oh yeah, the wasn't it? No, I'm thinking of a different one where it was like, there's Dungeon Crawl Classics where like you either pick a class or a race.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah. It was like,
because I feel like there was something like that in the older editions, but that's
yeah.
It's getting away from the lore. Well, you know, we do that so much anyways.
I mean, it's still lore. It's just like
it's real world lore.
It's root lore. Yeah,
root
right.
Lore. Oh, go ahead.
No, please, you continue.
So we're getting to the time where we're gonna pass over to chat for some questions. But before that, any last things you want to put on elves, divination, magic, or anything like that?
We didn't talk about divination.
Oh yeah, we did.
Little,
yeah,
so
yeah, we talked
maybe
about.
We should do that.
Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that because that is Alyndra's like thing.
Yeah, and having foreseen this moment. I will just say the most broken thing you can do, and you should play this at your table, is a halfling divination wizard with the lucky feet.
Oh God,
I've done it. You're co-DM at that point where the DM's like, this is what happens, and you're like, is it? I don't think so. Yeah, especially because I ran around charming boss monsters. If I had because mechanically in 5th edition, divination wizards get something called a portent, where you can roll 2d20s once per day. And you can replace rolls with those numbers. So you either want a really high one or a really low one, obviously. And if I get a really low one, I just be like, charm monster. Also, it fails to save. Also, I have a new friend now. Also. Yeah. And then, so highly recommended of the old divination magic. Yeah.
So it besides, like, you know, because divination is one of the schools of magic, is there anything that like kind of separates it besides its style to the classes? Because it is it just seeing through time, or is there like a god influence in it?
So with wizardry, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, Aaron. Wizardry, your power is not divine; it is earned through effort and study. I mean, honestly, I almost feel like divination magic is the counter of being a cleric, even though I said I'm a cleric that's a divination wizard right now at the same time. You're almost like, no, I don't need to check in with any gods. I'll just look ahead and see what happens.
Like, I'm going to grab time itself and ask that.
Unlimited power. Unlimited power. The concept for that character, by the way, is he's a reborn, which is one of the new races coming up out of Van Richten's guide, where it's like you died and you came back because reasons. And he came back changed, and now he's preoccupied with death and exists out of time. That's why he can get glimpses of the future and why he's a grave cleric. So yeah, that's why.
Nice.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it is dope. But it's divination magic, all things being equal, has always had a rough history in D&D because the game was always weighted against seeing too far in the future, and having been on the other side of the table when somebody in games, especially some systems where you get like a very clear glimpse of like a week from now.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what's going to happen a week from now.
Guess what? You're a planning DM now.
Well, like there's a power in a game that shall not be named that you get a clear image of how someone dies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you freaking dumpster fires might shoot him like now, you know? So like the way I did it is it almost became like a Twilight Zone monkey paw. Like if they checked, then that future became fixed. So if I was like, they die old and happy, and you're like, but we're here to kill him, I'm like, I guess you're not, because he dies old and happy.
Oh, wow.
That.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because that is one of the things, I mean, just even expanding out to the idea, like prophecy is a big thing in fantasy a lot of the time. But when prophecy is like, here's your roadmap, it's kind of boring. I mean, I don't know. Some people like knowing what's coming, and that kind of story is satisfying for that reason.
Yeah.
But it sort of feels like, okay, well, you took out all the questions. But if you flip it and you're like, okay, prophecy says you can't do the thing you need to do, and now what are you going to do? That's interesting. That's a neat twist on it.
I mean, this isn't from a lore perspective, but as like a DM perspective, like I'd almost see those situations as being able to, one, scare the crap out of players, and two, give myself plot points to work towards that I can then have, I can see where I'm going with it. Because and I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you've seen the new Justice League cut, they do some really cool things with seeing into the future, and that's the sort of thing that I'm like, I'm here for this, because that was exciting as hell, and you want to know how you get there and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also like, you know, vague visions of the future, you know, symbolic vision, like that kind of stuff is all well and good, and quite frankly, well-worn fantasy territory of, you know, the prophetic dream and things like that. It's just the more literal it needs to be, the harder it
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we pass over to chat and wrap up this talk about Alyndra, do want to point out that one of her familiars is available for purchase to have as your familiar, which is Grant, the baby blue dragon familiar. And I really want to endorse and ask y'all to pick up this familiar, because the money goes towards the Grant Imahara Steam Foundation, and I absolutely love the fact that that Jen it was the one that like spearheaded this, was like, hey, here's this familiar, work with this foundation. That would be really awesome. So I would really hope that if you have the ability to pick up that one and help out. But let's see what chat has got going on, and my lord, there's quite a bit. I'm going to call out Jace thing first, which they put in the middle of all the questions that said, I think I would pass out, I think I would just pass away if I saw a life-size Skeksis walk into a room. Just not even pass out, pass away.
I did see, so at Gen Con one year, I got to judge the costume contest, and they opened it with I cannot remember his name, but he's like a comedian that does like parody songs, but he did one with a not an elaborate Skeksis costume, but like a little like,
oh my god,
bringing Skeksy back. One of the funniest things I ever seen.
I love that.
I did enjoy bringing Skeksy back when that was like, I'm so traumatized. I didn't watch the Netflix show. Everybody's like, oh, it's such a shame it was canceled. I'm like, because I didn't need to see it. No.
See, the closest story I've heard to that is my wife and her sister, again, going around Comic-Con. Their dad was leading around like, oh, I think this is the hall that we need to go in for this panel. And they opened the door, and an entire Comic-Con panel room full of Klingons turn and look at them. And it's just like, wrong room. We're just gonna...
You're like,
go this way. And they said something to them in Klingon.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right. And then you just take a step forward, and they start hitting you with those pain sticks. You know, you got to go through the.
Then you got to start humming your own battle music. Dun, 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 dun. I like Brian Cortillo's suggestion here of the Chicago Manual of Smite.
17th edition.
Hold on a second. As a writer, I have suffered greatly at the hands of the Chicago Manual of Style. And I will only say, well played.
Some would say that you've already had that spell used on you.
Well played.
Cassius335 says Drow equals Dark Elf, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
for a blip.
Those terms are interchangeable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Edgelord elves.
Let's see. Oh god. Justin Totino says I both do and don't want to live in the nightmare future that has Florida Man as a TTRPG class.
You know what? Make that future now. It's available to you.
True.
Trontari comes in to add the Florida Man, parentheses, or woman class, proficient in all saves, ability, hold my ale.
It would just be like a bard barbarian, though.
Yeah.
It's like a
Oh my
scald
God.
where you're like just resistance to all damage and just really high saves and skill checks. Yeah, 100%.
I really want to make a bard barbarian now. That's just
Florida Man.
That's just
With a
Florida Man.
python, inexplicably with a python familiar.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Alligator on a leash.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, Vancouver by Night says cleric phase equals guy liner. I
Sure,
do love.
you probably never heard of it. It's too underground.
Yeah, no, you never heard of this god.
You never heard of Oghma.
I do love this. I genuinely mean this, chat. I love that originally this section was set up so y'all could ask questions, and you mostly use it to just riff off of our jokes, and I'm here for it.
I mean, por qué no los dos?
Right.
You know, I will just say one quick thing though. About Oghma back when you were saying is all knowledge good. I'm very much on the all knowledge is good train, but there's definitely some things I wish I could unlearn. Yeah.
Let's
So
see.
apparently you're Orthodox.
And we will crush the Oghmite heresy with a sternly worded parchment.
With a strong printed parchment.
It's like cue that gif from Supernatural of Cassiel where it just unfolds. In refutation, it's like when the Dr. B and Professor Elemental would do the gentleman battle raps.
God.
That's what it's like.
So Baby Lone Ranger 2261 said, I mean, if you curse them with to age fast and then charm them to make them happy, technically fulfills the future of dying old and happy.
That's what I like. Modern solutions to modern problems.
This one was this one's about Black Dice Society. B52 Willie says it's real now, not to spoil the April Fool's joke.
You know, again, y'all, I was just talking because we were on with Watsy right before this. I am not above doing such a thing. We've established I am, in fact, a monster, but I'd like to believe that I don't joke about that business stuff.
Yeah.
I assure you, this is very real.
So I think the last one we're gonna do is Cassius335 says, how many elf variants are there?
How many elf variants aren't there?
And then it says, as in high, wood, Xmas, etc.
Oh, so as established, high elves, which have 3 variants
Oh my god.
listed on the, and I want to be clear, like I am not an elf expert.
Yeah.
I'm going on what I've kind of picked up and then what I've refreshed from the wiki. So there was like a time where there were like right at the end of 3.5, especially, there was lots of little like source books about different kind of areas, either like geographic areas or like conceptual areas. Like this is a book about cold places. This is a book about watery places.
Yeah.
And there may be other little weird elves in there, but so you've got high elves, and then you've got sun, moon, star. You've got Sylvan Elves, so you've got wood and wild. You've got drow. You've got what I call the bonkers elves, which is the Avarials, the aquatic elves, the Lithari. What am I forgetting? There's one more, isn't there?
The list is Avariel, dark elf, Lithari, moon elf, sea elf, star elf, sun elf, wild elf, and wood elf. Did you say sun elf?
I did say sun elf.
Yeah, then that's it. You got them all.
All right.
I want you to know that after I read that question and Erin started answering very seriously, my wife hands me from behind my computer this sticky note that says Keebler.
Keebler. Oh,
that's how they get you, you know. Again, it says average lifespan 750 years, and that's all. That's again, I get that you have to arrange these things in a way that makes sense, but it's like even back to the Lord of the Rings, you know, where you have an elf that's been a fighter for 600 years is going to just smash you. Like, like it had to be like the humans are like, yay, we're competent and comparable. It's like, but you're not though. Like, not even a little bit.
My headcanon is that elves live so long that they get distracted easily and they're kind of lazy.
I love it.
Or go full doctor.
I was gonna say it's been 600 years being a fighter, but like at least 300 of that was picking out the right armor.
But it is still a good insult that I've forgotten more about being a fighter than you know.
Yes, it's just, it could be really, really true.
Yes.
Literally. Yeah. Well, because again, that's, if you think about it, if you just like lay your long rest end to end, a level 1 to level 20 adventure is like maybe 18 months.
Yeah.
Like you can have a crazy summer and come back a god. You know?
No, I'm just thinking of like D&D High School, the game, where it's
again, it's like, what'd you do this summer? I've come to bargain. That's what I did this summer. You know, like I have mastered space and time and foreseen this moment.
I love
Charm,
it.
you're my friend now. I'm prom king.
So that is unfortunately all the time we have for lore today. Erin, B. Dave, where can people find you and what awesome things are you working on?
I'm glad.
Oh no, Erin needs a moment. Erin needs a moment.
Got it right. You know what? I'll tank this one for her. You'll see us doing a lot of that here in about 5 minutes when they repeat Fool's Errand episode 1, and you can join us back live at 4 Pacific for episode 2 of A Fool's Errand. And if you're fast, you got 4 more minutes to vote. So log into Idle Champions.
Do it.
Vote to affect the outcome. Follow the Black Dice Society on Twitter. We're the Black Dice SOC because you don't have enough characters.
Yeah.
That whole thing's gonna start soon. And follow me on the Tweetagrams at BDaveWalters because I'm doing stuff all over the place all the time.
Get hyped.
I'm gonna be left at charmed. I'm prom king forever.
That's my gift to you.
Okay, so you can catch me on Twitter at Erin M. Evans. You can see me on Idle Champions Presents A Fool's Errand, which I'm very excited about, although I don't remember. I'm curious if Havilar has thrown up enough that she's not drunk anymore. Because I do like playing drunk Havilar.
She went hard.
You can also catch me on Wednesdays at 6:30 on twitch.tv/Dungeon Scrawlers, playing Cecilia, who is half Lithari and sometimes turns into a wolf, although she didn't like it very much. So if you want some more weird bonkers elves, there's a little bit of weird bonkers elves. That's it. That's what I got.
I do realize we're short on time, but still, with the Lithari, I appreciate the fact that everyone else is cursed with lycanthropy. For them, it's a cultural choice. You know, they're like, we're wolf Americans. Thank you very much. We're lupine Americans.
Lupine Americans.
Yeah, with our own proud lineage.
I love it. You can catch me on the Difficulty Class podcast every Friday, where I've both Erin and B-Dave have been on an episode. So if you need to hear more of us, you can go check that out. And I'm also on Champions of Psychology, which the season finale of season 1 is tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about self-care. So we hope that you're able to join us tomorrow, same time, same place, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNEGames. If you missed any part of this show, you can catch it later as a podcast at 2 p.m. on your favorite podcast services. And remember, if you have any suggestions for lore topics for the future, please send them in to championsoflore@codenameEntertainment.com. I can get through that, I swear. Yeah, so be sure to come back 4 p.m. today for more Idle Champions Presents A Fool's Errand, and see what ridiculous costumes they might get up to this time. I am gonna say, Dave, there was a part of me that was sitting on the couch last week just be like, does Treavor get a costume?
You know what? We got 1 minute left. What would Treavor's fancy costume be?
Oh God, no! Dang it! You know what?
Tiny sequin vest. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, he's got a little. He's a knight now. He's got a little helmet with a little beak sticking out.
A little birdie knight for Treavor.
Little birdie knight.
I'm gonna try and work that in.
Yeah, or if Jareth needs a backup dancer, he can do that. But
send him in the red panda.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Thank you to Jay for moderating in the chat as always, and thank you to Codename Entertainment for giving us this time to talk about some D&D or whatever the heck else we do on here. But until next week, Champions out.